When Adventure Time rose from the dead in 2020, it traded lives with one of, if not its most beloved character, Jake the dog. This all started with the second Distant Land special, Obsidian. Taking place quite a few years after Come Along With Me, Finn makes a surprise appearance at the tail end of the special alongside Bronwyn. But no Jake. Well, Jake is there in both spirit and ink, as Finn has immortalized his brother in the form of a tattoo smack dab on his chest. Fans quickly connected the dots and realized that all signs pointed to Jake being 6 feet under, passing pretty early into Finn's life, all things considered, which was confirmed in the next Distant Land special, Together Again, which was all about Finn finding his brother in the afterlife. And although we're still not sure if Jake was already dead in Obsidian, given that Fionna Cake confirmed that Finn got this tattoo before Jake's passing, and he looks a little older here than he did in Obsidian, the new series also confirms that Jake has been gone for some time when Finn is about 29 years old. But none of these installments have given us a single hint at how Jake kicked the bucket or when it happened. And if you're hoping that'll change, if you feel like you need that closure, and that sucks for you, buddy, because we're never gonna know how Jake died. Never, ever, never, ever, 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 ever. We are doomed to a life of waking up in a cold sweat at 3:30 in the morning, wondering what could have possibly happened to our boy. Don't just take my word for it, because showrunner Adam Muto explained why in a brand new interview. So grab some tissues for those tears and take a seat as I give you a rundown on why we'll never know how Jake died. As to be expected, the premiere of Fionna Cake means that a lot of interviews with Adam Muto are rolling out. And just in case someone out there doesn't know, although Adventure Time was created by Pendleton Ward, he stepped down as showrunner after a few seasons. And Adam Muto has been steering the ship ever since, although Pendleton still voices his characters, so he's not removed entirely. In an interview with Inverse, the topic of Jake's fate came into question, and Muto gave a pretty transparent response that may not be the answer fans wanted, but is certainly the answer fans needed. Fionna Cake is doing a lot of different things, but in some ways, it does feel like a pretty close sequel to Adventure Time. You're picking up a lot of characters a few years down the road and seeing what they've been up to. Do you see it as a sequel to the original series? I mean, by definition, I guess so. You are getting appearances by those characters, but then most of the times you see them after the first cameo, it's as an alternate universe version. I guess we're getting bits and pieces. We get a lot of Simon, but Jake... Yeah, Jake's current state is probably left the most mysterious out of everybody. But yeah, it definitely is in continuity, so you could think of it as a sequel. I did want to ask about that. Maybe you're keeping this close to the chest, but is Jake dead? And if so, do you know how he died? Do you know what happened? I mean, if there's a really simple answer to that, I don't think it would be satisfying. We've shown Finn and Jake at the end of their lives, how it resolves. That's the more important ending to me. You've shown them dead, basically. We don't really show how Finn dies either. The how of it isn't necessarily as interesting to me to show on screen, because that's kind of a downer. So we left it ambiguous. It wasn't important for this series. I was doing some random internet googling earlier today, and I saw there's a theory that Jake died from eating too much chocolate over the course of his life. It finally caught up with that. Yes, see, if I gave a concrete answer, it would rob somebody of that. Exactly. I don't want to just leave things open to shrug at them. But if it's not answered in a story or left to the imagination, it's probably not answered satisfyingly in like a comment or an article. There's a tendency sometimes to add answers after your series is done. But to me, whatever you put in is what's speaking. So you can have your own theories, and I'm sure if you ask different people who worked on the show, the different board artists and writers, they would have different theories. I don't want to cut those off yet or say definitively what the answer is. That's part of this series too, dealing with the idea of what's canon and what is meaningful to people. Canon is important to me internally when we're working on a thing, that it makes sense. But I don't expect anybody watching to really dig in and have the same level of obsessiveness. Oh, Muto, you misguided man. I think if you like the characters, you can do whatever you want with them, and that is your version of it. There's so much obsessiveness about canon now and connecting things, and sometimes it's franchises that have been around for 50 years, and you have new writers coming in and answering old questions. And to me, it's like, well, that's not the answer they had at the beginning. That's definitely something they looked at and came up with an answer for. But now that's the official answer to it, which is a little weird coming this far after the fact, after properties have changed hands 3 or 4 times. How's that more official than something somebody wrote on their own? Yo, Muto is spittin'. Personally, I think Muto hit the nail on the head, and the team made the best decision. Because he's right. At this point, with this being a lingering mystery for about 3 years, I'm not sure if any answer would leave fans satisfied. At the very least, some fans may be pleased while others would feel underwhelmed or flat out disappointed. Jake's death was a mystery introduced after the OG series wrapped up. They were never going to go for it during the Cartoon Network days. It's different from Fionna Cake's origins, for example, because although we went years without an answer for that, it was something they already had an answer for during the original series. Sadly, they just didn't have enough time to make it happen after Cartoon Network axed the original series. After Prismo was introduced as a character, it just kinda shifted in that direction. It was something we had in mind, but we didn't think we'd ever really pay it off within the run of the show. It would have been cool, but we just didn't have the episode count to over-explain one element of what Fionna and Cake were. I resisted the idea of them just being fanfiction from Ice King, because it would limit them forever to just being his interpretation of Finn and Jake and him being obsessed with them. Which was a funny joke, but it felt weird after a while. It felt like we were kind of boxing them in. Ultimately, I think not knowing the details around Jake's death works because his death was inevitable. He's a dog, one who's been in Finn's life for as long as he can remember. And although the relationship is definitely much deeper than Jake being a pet, I still think it's important to include an allegory to losing a childhood animal. I also appreciate Muto wanting to keep the door open for other people's interpretations. I still love Steve Wolfhart's headcanon that when Jake dies, his corpse would start growing uncontrollably before becoming one with the earth. It gets me every single time. Now if you ask me, I do think Jake died of unnatural causes, because when Finn was having his breakdown in Together Again, he states,
"Why didn't you wait for me?"
The whole opening sequence and his reaction to Jake's grave leads me to believe that this was a sudden tragedy that took a toll on Finn for quite some time, trying to bury those feelings deep into his subconscious. At the end of the day, we know where Finn and Jake end up, and that's what matters. Jake was chilling in the 50th Dead world for literal decades, living his best life, being as unbothered as it could possibly get until he got the chance to reunite with his brother, kick the Lich's ass with him, and reincarnate together. As far as I'm concerned, Finn and Jake got the best ending possible. I thought this was worth sharing in a video since interviews tend to go under the radar, and Jake's death has been a hot topic for quite some time, and will continue to be until we all get to join him in the Dead worlds. Well, I mean, I guess he's not there anymore, but I'm sure his reincarnation will be back there one day. With all this said, what are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments down below. And keep the conversation going by following me on Twitter and Instagram at AwestruckVox. Check out Toondrip for some dope cartoon merch, and if you enjoyed this video, please throw it a like and subscribe to the Roundtable for more great cartoon content. Thanks for watching. Animation forever, support the strikes, and I'll see you next time. Peace.